Hey guys, I'd like to welcome you back to my channel. Here messing with Mr. Wilson. Today I got a little bit of a project going on. We're going to be working on my pride and joy here, my 450. I've done a bunch of motocross racing with it and some flat track racing, and I also do a lot of trail riding with it, so it's kind of my all-around go-to bike for just having fun and everything. So I mean, it's got a mild build and stuff done to it, so it's definitely a fun all-around ripper. But what I'm going to be doing to her tonight is probably just tearing the front end apart. It's got some JD Performance Plus 3 long travel A-arms on there, and I've actually been having a little bit of issue when I've been flat track racing it. The front end's pushing a little too much, and with the offset and everything on the wheels, I think my front end's just a little too wide. So, and with flat track racing season being over for the winter here where I'm at, I kind of want to get it set back up to do a little bit of trail riding, so I don't need the long travel A-arms and stuff on there for just messing around out in the field and stuff. So I've got an old setup from whenever I first started racing motocross a while back. So we're gonna go up in the loft up there, and I think I know exactly where they are, but don't mind the mess up there. There's a whole bunch of parts and random stuff up there, and it's definitely not very organized. So let's go up there, see if I can find the A-arms and stuff that I want to put on there. Alright, let's head up here and see if I can find them. I've got a whole bunch of tires and stuff over here, different tires and stuff for motocross and trail riding, and of course I'll probably be putting a set of those on and taking my flat track tires off and putting them up here. But it's kind of nice that my 450 and my 400 and the little Can-Am 90 and my daughter's DRR all have the same bolt pattern. So I kind of ended up with a collection of wheels and tires, and it's kind of nice that I can switch those out between all the bikes. But yeah, here's my old setup that I was running when I first started racing motocross. Got a set of Hauser +2+1 Slycast standard travel, and then I had a buddy that we rebuilt these factory front shocks. They're actually a dual spring rate shock, and it's got custom valving, a custom piston and everything all in the shocks, and it worked really well when I first started racing motocross. And running the stock shocks and with the shock covers, everyone thought that I was just running bone stock suspension and was out winning the races. So it was kind of a sleeper bike whenever I first started racing motocross, because it still had, like I said, all the shocks were stock, and I still ran the stock hood, the stock headlight, stock front bumper, and was out there just kicking butt. And everyone finally caught on to it about the end of the season whenever I was passing everybody on the rough stuff with stock setup, and they started questioning me, wanting to know what I'd had done. And I played it off as long as I could, but I ended up winning the overall series that year, and it was a good time. So then the following year, after everyone kind of caught on, then that's whenever I got my long travel set up and started pushing stuff a little bit further. So, but we're going to go ahead and get these down there, and we'll go ahead and start tearing the other ones off. So I'll see you guys back down at the bottom. Alright guys, I made it back down here. I moved the four-wheeler over and I actually put it up on the lift because I'm old, and makes it definitely a lot easier to work on. So as you can see, I got it up in the air. That way I don't have to bend over the whole time. But I also wanted to tell you guys a couple other reasons why I was changing these A-arms too. To run these Elkas, you got to trim your fender back a little bit. And I had actually crashed, and this fender came down and was rubbing on this knob. And as you can see, it's starting to leak a little bit of oil there too. So I need to get these shocks out, get them serviced and rebuilt. And then also in that crash, I had hit a concrete barrier at a fair race. And I don't know how fast I was going, but I was as fast as I could go in third gear, and found out the tire was flat as I went to make a corner, and I hit a concrete jersey barrier wide open pretty much in third gear. Well then, as you can, I don't know if you can see it, but this A-arm actually is cracked. So yeah, it's cracked right down through there where the shock mounts. So I also want to get those off and get my A-arms welded up and repaired too. So just taking them off for the winter will give me time to do some of the repairs and stuff on the shocks. And I also have a long travel Elka Stage 5 rear shock that needs service too. So I'll send all the shocks out and get them serviced at the same time. And I send that A-arm out to a buddy and he'll weld it up for me, so we'll get that all fixed. So we're gonna go ahead and start this tear down, and the first thing that I'm probably going to do is remove this sway bar, because I don't need to run that in the wintertime around here. So we'll go ahead and get that off of there, and once that's off, I'll check back with you guys. Alright guys, I got the sway bar most of the way off, but I wanted to show you guys something that I do that kind of makes things a little bit easier on you sometimes. From the factory, Honda likes to put these swing arm or A-arm bolts through from the front, and if you ever have your A-arms off, put the bolts through the other way, because then they'll fit in here no problem. But you don't have to take the bumper off every time you change A-arms or do any kind of maintenance with your A-arms. If you see over here on this 400, I've never had these ones off yet, but you can see that Honda likes to put the bolts through from the front. So when you loosen the nut and try and get the bolt out, you hit the back of your bumper. So you can't get the bolt out without taking the bumper off. But once you've had it off, put the bolts in the other direction, and it'll save you time next time. And like I say, you won't have to worry about taking the bumper off every time you do any kind of maintenance with your A-arms or anything along those lines. Because I mean, if you ride and are hard on things kind of like I am, you're going to want to take these apart and grease them as often as you can, unless you've got grease fittings, and then it makes it a little bit easier. But hardly any of the A-arms will have grease fittings unless you get some of the aftermarket ones, but even those you'll have to grind and notch the frame for some of them. So as you can see, the Hauser ones, they do have grease fittings in them, but the lowers you have to put a plug in, or you have to grind the frame out so that there's room for the travel. If you don't grind the frame out, whenever you compress your suspension, you snap that grease fitting off in there. So I just wanted to give you guys a little tip or a little piece of advice. If you ever got them off, flip them around. It'll make your life a little bit easier. So I'm going to go ahead and finish getting this sway bar off, and then I think I'm going to go ahead and take the knuckles off next. That'll be what I do. So basically what I'm going to do is pull this lower bolt, this upper bolt, and they'll be a little hard to get out. I normally take a big hammer and hit on this aluminum a little bit just to jar it, and that'll pop them out. Sometimes you have to use a pry bar, pry up on this. When you hit that, that'll pop out. But once I get those out, I'm going to leave my brakes and everything together, and I'll just take them and I'll lay them back here on the Nerf bar. That way I don't have to bleed the brakes and worry about brake lines and all that when I'm putting it back together. So I'll go ahead and get that sway bar off, and we'll get the knuckles off, and then I'll show you what to do after that. Alright guys, I went ahead and got all the bolts and stuff loose off camera because I figured I'd save you guys the boring video of just watching me turn wrenches. But like I said, I got all the bolts loose. Show you here. So that bolt's out, got this nut off, and basically got all the A-arm bolts off. The tie rods, it's easiest if you can get an extension and actually come up through this hole right here and get to the flag nuts on your tie rods. That's the easiest way I've found to get them off, or else you can just use a ratchet wrench and basically 2 wrenches to get in there. But it's definitely a little faster if you can get a ratchet up through the bottom there. So we're going to go ahead and see if we can pull all these bolts out and get this all tore apart for you here real quick. The other thing you'll want to make sure too on these A-arms, it'd be nice to have a little plug here to keep the dirt and stuff out. But you're going to want to make, I took my air compressor and blowgun and blew all the dirt and everything out around both of those bolts. That way you can get your socket in there and get a good grip on the head of the bolts and the nuts on the back side and not round them off, because the dirt likes to pack in on the front, of course, and you really struggle to try and get a socket in there on those. So I took a little pick and cleaned the dirt around, and then took my air compressor and blew the dirt out. So that definitely make your life a little easier before you try and go in there and round off the bolts. So let's see here, we'll get these off and we're almost done tearing it apart. Alright guys, that last bolt kind of kicked my ass a little bit. I must have forgot to grease that one whenever I greased all of them, but it was actually stuck in the pivot bushing of the A-arm. But after I got a punch and a hammer and enough persuasion, I got it broke loose. So we got her out of there. The last bolt, pulled it out. So now we just got to pull this A-arm off and give it a couple little taps, probably 2. Try and do this one-handed here. There's that. Oh. Well, that was a close one. We almost dropped her off the lift. Maybe it would have been a good idea to strap it down now that I took all the weight off the front. We'll get that fixed. Alright, that was close. Like I said, we almost dropped it off the lift there. Probably should have strapped it. But we got all the A-arms and everything off. So I'll probably order a couple new tie rods too. The boots are torn on a couple of them, so I don't really want to take a chance of tie rod coming off. I mean, the ball joints and stuff are all tight, so I'll probably reuse those, but I said I don't want to take a chance reusing the tie rods. So there she is for tonight. I'll probably call her quits tonight. Like I said, I got it all tore apart, and then we'll probably come back tomorrow and start putting it all back together with all the Hauser parts then. So I guess that'll be it. Thanks for watching, guys, and please share, like, and subscribe to my channel. I'm trying to get it to grow. And like I said, please don't be afraid to leave a comment down below on some ideas and things that I can try and do to improve on this channel. So thanks for watching, guys, and have a good evening.